Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Now, we all know the world of global drug approvals is, frankly, a beast. It's notoriously complex, packed with high-stakes research, endless data dumps, and some seriously strict regulatory hurdles. But today, we're going to completely demystify the core foundation of how a drug actually gets the green light from health authorities around the world. We're going to pop the hood and explore the exact blueprint that makes the whole shebang possible, the 5 modules of the CTD.
To really grasp why this blueprint is a total game changer, we kind of have to look back at the historical headaches sponsors used to face. Picture this. You're a pharmaceutical sponsor. You've got this amazing, groundbreaking new drug, and you want to get it approved in the United States, Europe, and India. Well, decades ago, that meant dealing with chaotic, wildly unharmonized, region-specific paper filings. You literally had to reinvent the wheel and reformat mountains of paper binders for every single regulatory agency. To put that into perspective, back in the day, a single drug application required literal semi-trucks full of paper just to be delivered to the authorities. Yeah, semi-trucks. It was, as you can guess, incredibly inefficient.
But enter the ultimate solution, the CTD, or the Common Technical Document. Developed by the International Council for Harmonization, specifically under their ICH M4 Guideline, the CTD is a globally harmonized structure. It basically gives drug sponsors a universal blueprint to build a single, coherent scientific dossier that's recognized internationally. So instead of starting from scratch every time, you build the core of the application once, and then you just adapt the administrative layers for different regions. It's brilliant!
Okay, so here's our agenda for this explainer, which is basically our table of contents for today's tour. 1. The blueprint. 2. Module 1, Regional Lobby. 3. Module 2, the Summaries. 4. Module 3, Quality Engineering. 5. Modules 4 and 5, Trials. And finally, 6. eCTD Digital Evolution. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. The Blueprint, CTD Architecture.
So rather than thinking of the CTD as some massive, headache-inducing pile of XML files and PDFs, I want you to visualize it as a carefully constructed 5-story building. Every single floor has a highly designated, globally recognized regulatory purpose. Floor 1 is your lobby. Floor 2 is the executive suite. Floor 3 is the engineering plant. Floor 4 houses the labs, and Floor 5, that contains the clinics. This spatial architecture is exactly how regulators navigate an application. So, let's step inside, shall we?
Section 2, Module 1, Regional Lobby.
We're starting out on the first floor. Interestingly enough, Module 1 is actually not part of the globally harmonized core. It's the only unharmonized part of our entire building. This is the lobby, and the decor, so to speak, changes entirely depending on which country you're in. It is strictly dedicated to regional administrative info. For example, if you're submitting to the US FDA, your lobby has got to include a Form 356H. But if you're over in the European Union, the EMA requires an electronic application form or an EAF. Basically, this module contains the specific cover letters, labeling, and administrative paperwork unique to that specific local agency, whether that's the FDA, EMA, or India's CDSCO.
Section 3, Module 2, the Summaries.
All right, taking the elevator up to the second floor, we enter the globally harmonized executive suite of the dossier. Now, the stakes in this module are absolutely massive. It's actually a well-known scenario in the industry that if an FDA reviewer only had, say, 48 hours to evaluate an entire drug application, they would skip everything else and go straight to Module 2. Why? Because this section is home to the expert summaries. It holds the quality overall summary, the non-clinical overview, and the clinical overview. It is the high-level, critical synthesis of literally everything going on in the rest of the building.
And you can see here, just looking at how it's mapped out, the intense alphanumeric granularity is wild. Reviewers can easily navigate from the general CTD introduction in Section 2.2 straight down into the weeds of the non-clinical written and tabulated summaries in 2.6, or jump over to the clinical summary in 2.7. It's a highly systematic, expertly organized executive briefing.
Section 4, Module 3, Quality Engineering.
Next up, we step onto our third floor. Module 3 holds the CMC data, that's chemistry, manufacturing, and controls. Basically, this is where you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can manufacture this drug safely and consistently, and it's broken down into 2 main pillars. First up is 3.2S, the drug substance. This is all about the raw, active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API. How is it synthesized? How is it purified? How are you testing for impurities? Then, the second pillar is 3.2P, the drug product.
This covers the final formulation and the packaging, the actual pill or vial that ends up reaching the patient. To give you an idea of just how deep into the weeds a sponsor has to go, check out this hierarchy for the drug substance section. You can't just say, hey, we made the drug, trust us. No way. You have to provide incredibly extensive documentation. We're talking down to the 4th or 5th decimal level here on the exact manufacturing processes, the strict control of materials, and the structural characterization. It is rigorous, hardcore quality engineering on full display.
Section 5, Modules 4 and 5, Trials.
All right, let's head up to the top floors of our building. This is where the heaviest burden of evidence lives, the actual study reports. Let's clearly contrast these two. Module 4 houses the non-clinical study reports. Think of this as the labs floor. It contains all your pharmacology, toxicology, and animal data. Module 5, on the flip side, is the clinics floor. This is dedicated exclusively to clinical study reports, the massive datasets proving human efficacy and safety, which includes all the tabular listings of every single clinical study. Combined, these two modules make up the vast majority of the sheer volume of any submission.
Section 6, eCTD Digital Evolution.
So you know that whole 5-story building we just walked through? Well, it used to be made of literal physical paper. But thankfully, it's been upgraded into a mandated digital ecosystem known as eCTD. Now, while agencies like the FDA and EMA have strictly mandated this eCTD format, others, like India's CDSCO, are currently in a gradual transition phase. But the technical anatomy of an eCTD is just brilliant. It replaces all those physical paper binders with a clean XML backbone. You've got your index.xml file, which acts as the spine, mapping all your PDX directly to the CTD sections we just talked about. Then the regional.xml file handles that local Module 1 lobby. The indexmd5.txt file is a checksum manifest, basically a mathematical seal that verifies absolutely no file was corrupted or altered in transit. And finally, the CTO-VA provides the validation style sheet. The whole thing is a highly secure, completely traceable digital package.
Which brings us to a final thought. As the pharmaceutical industry continues to advance at breakneck speed, so does this framework. The upcoming eCTD 4.0 standard promises even greater integration, dynamic lifecycle management, and even potential syncing with electronic health records. The original CTD Blueprint revolutionized global drug approvals by bringing order to absolute chaos. But as we transition fully into this next frontier of structured data management, it really makes you wonder, how much faster might life-saving treatments reach the patients who desperately need them?